but they actually had to stop because of the 2007 writer's strike. I just said that. Why did I say it like that?
Writer strike.
Writer strike.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
I'm doing everything I can. And stop calling me Shirley.
The center has to be at least 3 times bigger than this.
All right, it's Sincerely Unqualified. I'm Kevin. That's Wini. Today we are doing I Love You Man, and we did it again this week. We're going to give you guys the double. We're doing I Love You Man and Role Models.
I had to do it.
Yep, the Paul Rudd appreciation episode.
We love it. I mean, Paul Rudd I wouldn't say doesn't get enough credit in comedies because he gets a ton, but his path to success and just everything that he's been in, I feel like it's well deserving of, a full episode of kind of going through these two movies and highlighting not only him, but everyone else in the cast and how great these movies were. Yeah,
absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. And in terms of just recent news, I would say congratulations to his Chiefs. It's an easy time to be a Chiefs fan right now.
Hard time to be a Bills fan. I'm so sorry. I was on the Bills train. I was there for a while.
Everyone else
Once the Giants got knocked out, I was just hard on the Bills. And I'm sorry, Buffalo. We all feel your pain.
We love you, Buffalo. Everyone does. That's the thing. Is it cooler to dislike the Bills now? Because I thought it was cool to like the Bills. No, that's the thing. They are such good fans, and it's such a lovable program that it will never be cool to dislike the Bills.
Look, I realized when I was watching last night that it's becoming the Patriots all over again, where you kind of hate the Chiefs and just watching them against, especially when you're on the Bills bandwagon, you're like, oh, yeah. Like, why is it so easy? Why does it look so easy for them? Literally just, Kelsey's open for 79,000 yards again. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I would also say that the Chiefs are super likable too. Like, you have Patrick Mahomes. How can you dislike him? I mean, big Andy Reid. I think everyone wanted Andy to get his one. And now I think if that turns into 3 or 4, people are going to get really tired of it.
If they just run through the 2020 decade, like if they just run through the 20s, which is weird to say, if they run through the 20s and Mahomes is on this 12-year, billion-dollar contract and he gets 5 Super Bowls, even if he makes it to 5, it's ridiculous. And everybody's going to turn the page and be like, you know what, it's enough. They're going to be like, super teams. It's going to become the NBA. It's like, super teams. We can't have these super teams, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I agree. We can stop the football talk, though, especially if you're listening from, another country you don't care at all about American football.
0%.
We'll move on here.
Yeah,
but
this is about Paul. We're about Paul, and we're about these movies.
We're about these movies. But if you are new with us and you're listening, welcome. Here's the quick rundown. We basically pick a movie or two every week. We dissect it, give you our takes, give you our insights, and then tell you some facts about it before we go on to our favorites. Because, as comedy movies, you have the favorite lines. You have the favorite scenes. And you got to go over them.
Exactly. With, the dramas and everything, you can go over the little, Easter eggs and everything. Not to say that those aren't in comedy movies. But with comedies, it's more long-standing, what do you love about this movie? What lines stuck with you the most? Things you say to this day that you watched the movie 10 years ago and it's still part of your vocabulary to this day. Things like that.
Yeah. So if you are new, please like us, rate us. Or if you like us, please rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Subscribe to us. Subscribe to or follow our socials. Do all that good stuff for us. Also, we do need to say, we've been saying it the last few weeks, so if you have been with us, definitely you know the drill. If you're getting new clothing, if you're getting anything, you got to go to workedsneakers.com. So that's worked sneakers in the past tense, and you get some good stuff. You get some street fashion kind of things. You got pretty much everything. If you want to look cool, if you want to look better than me, you got to go to worksneakers.com.
Exactly. With the vaccine starting to roll out a little bit, we're all starting to get a little bit ready to go, we're kind of feeling it out, maybe becoming people again a little bit, getting ready to go out. You got to be prepared. And to be prepared, you got to dress right. If you're going to dress right, you want to dress right, you want to be prepared for when your first time going out after this is, whenever that may be, go to worksneakers.com. They will treat you right. You will not look bad if you get anything from there. I can say that.
Yeah, you could absolutely say that because that's the truth. Head there, do it. We love those people over there. So help us support him and the company that he's growing, but also support us too. We love the sport. But we were talking about Paul Rudd. Mm-hmm. Let's break into it. So we're going to do like a little Paul Rudd spotlight here. So we'll just walk you through the beauty that is Paul Rudd, his journey to get where he is at nowadays, which is pretty crazy to think about. And
he found the fountain of youth somehow. Like this guy, let's just call it off right away. This man does not age. He could play a 27-year-old to this day and nobody would bat an eye. No, yeah, him and Rob Lowe. Yeah. Like they do not age. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think 2021 is going to be the year we're going to find out Paul Rudd and Rob Lowe's like skincare routine. Yeah. We're going to get some work sneakers. We're going to get the skincare routines going. We're going to look good. Let's hop it. Look, I'm going to be screen ready. By the time this year is over, I'm going to be 59 years old internally and look, 17. That's the best. I need to. Yeah, are you sure? No. 17? Maybe not 17. No, let's not say 17. Let's stretch it a little farther. Maybe, what's the prime age you would say? Like 25? Let's say he constantly looks 25. Yeah. I feel like that's when you're kind of peaking with everything. You're coming into your own. It's we're going to try to get set up to where the point where when we're Paul Rudd's age, we look like the age that we are now. Exactly. That's what we're saying. But Paul Rudd, so started out in 1995, was in Clueless, then had a stint on Friends as Phoebe's boyfriend in 2002. So, before that was Wet Hot American Summer, 2001. Mm-hmm. Then he started getting in the blue chips, the ones that we've already reviewed. So, Anchorman came out in 2004. 40-Year-Old Virgin came out in 2005. We didn't review this one yet, but it is review worthy because it is a blue chip. Knocked Up in 2007. Then a big year for Paul Rudd in 2008. Forgetting Sarah Marshall and Role Models came out. That's a hell of a year he had. I mean, he was Konu and then came out with this movie that we're going to dive right into it. But I mean, you can't get better than that. In a comedy world, you can't get better than that for 1 year. And the year after was I Love You Man. So that you got Role Models and I Love You Man coming out 2008, 2009. And then he kind of made a nice little pivot with his role in Perks of Being a Wallflower, which was a fantastic movie. And also, comedy, but different kind of comedy. Mm-hmm. He was in This Is 40 in 2012 as well. Mm-hmm. And then 10 years after 40-Year-Old Virgin, he becomes Ant-Man. He becomes one of the best parts of the MCU. Literally to transcend into to be a Marvel character first and foremost, you either get discovered by Marvel and you sign a lifetime contract to do as many movies and TV shows as is possible with them. Yeah. Or you've reached a certain level of either household name or something like that where you are a new level. Like if they bring you in and you were in Endgame, you're going to be recognized around the world. So to go from Wet Hot American Summer and then, 10, 15 years later to be in Endgame is a little bit absurd. It is. It just shows the acting ability that he has because he was mainly only a comedic actor. And then Perks of Being a Wallflower took a little turn. And honestly, I haven't seen his other films that were in his filmography. So he was in he was Fundamentals of Caring, which is pretty good. Yeah. So that one was pretty good. That was a little toss-in Netflix had. Yeah, we can't be doing every single movie because we'd just be sitting there for 10 minutes listing out things. But
what I will say is it just shows the progression of how good he is, and then Ant-Man's just a perfect character for him though, because it is funny. Like him as a character is funny, but then you have you were saying the level, just the level that these people have to be on to be in these Marvel movies is incredible. And
I love that they even let him be Paul Rudd in that movie.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't sign him and say, you know what, you're going to do what we say. I will say that Marvel is pretty good with, like, tossing in humor into their movies. You know, they're better than every other superhero movie at inserting that humor, those little quips that probably, you know, improv on set. But for that, they really let Paul Rudd just be him. And he's got this track record where you can see, you list the movies that he's been in, where it's Anchorman, 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, Forgetting Sarah Marshall. You can see, whether it's improv or delivery, him just continuously improving throughout. Like, he just keeps getting, from Anchorman, where he's Brian Fantana, and you see his improv ability, you know, 60% of the time works every time, into now, you can just see a constant progression of, like, they trust him more and more to do what he does best.
No, yeah, absolutely. And that was definitely a good shout out to Marvel, all those creators for doing that. Like they know how to get the most out of that character, and Paul Rudd is perfect for it. And it is so funny seeing the progression there, especially because, you know, we're big fans. So
yeah, if you couldn't tell. But let's dive into the first movie. So we're gonna go with I Love You Man first.
Yep. So I Love You Man. Basically, the rundown of this movie is that it starts out and Peter is Paul Rudd's character. He gets engaged to Rashida Jones's character, Zoe, and Zoe basically realizes he doesn't have many friends. So all this stuff ensues. He basically enlists the help of his brother, who is Andy Samberg, to go on mandates. And he gets catfished by an old man who, honestly, I love that old man, but I'm not sure if that was on purpose or not. I don't know if he was just like an accidental, like, I think he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely knows what he's doing. That was hilarious. I love that they threw that in there because honestly, like we mentioned last week, I hadn't seen this movie before. So when he started going like on findingfriends.com and shit like that, I didn't know where that was going to go. It could have gone in 70 different directions. And they just have this old guy show up.
Yeah, Mel Stein.
Yeah. So he's like, so how long you been using the internet?
You're good at it.
Pretty good at it. Yeah.
So he's going on these mandates, and you know, Thomas Lennon comes up, Reno 911's finest, fantastic. We're going to talk more about him later, but he basically gives up, and he's not really looking. And it's also worth noting that Peter is a real estate agent who's trying to sell Lou Ferrigno's house. So at one of his open houses, we have Sidney Fife show up, who is Jason Segel, and he's talking about the flatbread. They're just kind of connecting really well. And in the moment, he doesn't really realize what's happening. But then they exchange business cards, and he calls him, and you can tell that he just has no idea what he's doing, trying to hang out with a guy. Because Jason Segel in this movie he's just like a dude.
Yeah. I love that they tossed in a meet cute to like guys trying to make friends.
Yeah. This is like a bromance rom-com.
Yeah.
But also it comes out it kind of progresses, and the main plot is absolutely about Paul Rudd and Jason Segel and them becoming friends. But you have as strong of an actress as Rashida Jones and his fiance. And what happens is Paul Rudd and Jason Segel are becoming such good friends, and Jason Segel doesn't really know how to navigate relationships. So he says something that prompts Paul Rudd to basically get his relationship ended, or at least paused, because in the end, it comes through. Spoiler. They both, Paul Rudd and Jason Segel, come back together in their nice bromance in the scene where he gets married to Rashida Jones, which is great ending. It kind of like parallels a rom-com and a bromance.
It's exactly, so I think they took the rom-com formula and they were like, how can we make this different? So number one, they made it different. which is not the typical rom-com, like guy meets girl, blah, blah, blah. Guy met girl, guy had girl. They're looking at it from a different perspective of guy has 0 friends. Like, isn't that weird? And they even call it out. Like, Rashida Jones's friends are like, oh, he doesn't have friends? Like, what do you mean? You can't trust a guy who doesn't have friends. He's super clingy, blah, blah, blah. It's so interesting to see that because you don't really think of it from that perspective. Like, oh, who am I even going to ask to be in my, like, wedding party? Like, how can I do that if I don't have friends? And you see the progression of, like, Nick Kroll's in it, Aziz Ansari's in it, and he's fencing with them. And he's like that awkward guy who after the fact, like, everybody else goes to hang out, and then he's the one who's, you know, left out. He's the guy who can't really make friends. Everybody else is like, all right, we'll see you next week, right? And then they all go hang out. He leaves. Got to go home to the wife, you know? So it's really cool.
Yeah, they say it in the movie, he's a girlfriend's guy. So he never really had time to make true male friends. And he's such a good guy. He seems like he's easy to talk to, but once it comes to actually hanging out with just guys and having guy time, just not good at it at all.
Oh, yeah. And you can tell that right away when Jason Segel starts asking him questions, like the first time they hang out and grab a beer. He's like, so how's the sex? And he's like, whoa, what do you mean? I don't talk about that. That's private. He's like, look, man, I'm not going to tell her. Like, what do you mean? You can be honest here. He's just super weird about it.
Yeah, with those two characters, basically you're seeing like the polar opposites. So you basically have Paul Rudd being very reserved, and then Jason Segel being more of like a representation of like bro culture. Yeah. So I think that somewhere in the middle is reality, and there is something true underlying that if you do spend a lot of time with your significant other, your relationships can fall by the wayside. But it is, well, at least from our perspective as a guy who is engaged, it is important to have some guy time, you know? Obviously,
it's needed.
Yeah, and this is Hollywoodized, and it obviously goes to an extreme. But honestly, if you didn't have any friends and needed to build a wedding party, you probably have to go to that extreme.
And I mean, even when I think it's like 2005, when it's early internet, where you see using like friendfinder.com and stuff like that it's pretty weird still. But it's not so weird at the time where people are still using like Christian Mingle or all that. Not to call out Christian Mingle. I'm sure it's still running today. But it's basically like using one of those sites to try and find friends. I also love how they showed like the different kinds of like friendships hanging out, and Andy Samberg is guiding him through all of that, where it's like, look, you don't ask him out for dinner, you don't ask him out for this because that's going to be too serious. Meanwhile, Andy Samberg is his gay brother who is a trainer who's trying to get straight guys to date him the entire time. He's like, I'm tired of the chase. Like, guy friends is easy. Yeah. He's like, I can teach you how to make guy friends. I'm trying to be next level with these guys. Friends is easy.
Yeah. So he meets, I don't think he flips Joe Latruglio, but our guy Joey's in it.
Yeah. He doesn't.
He's squeaky at the gym. But something you were saying with the dating sites or like the friend finder is that something that's just been ruined by how horny dudes are, because you can't just have an app to be, I moved to a new city, I want to try to meet some friends, because every single time that app comes out, there are going to be dudes trying to have sex with people on it.
Immediately. If you introduce a new app tomorrow, there'll be 300 users in that city who are immediately trying to use it for illicit purposes. No matter what it is, they're going to try and meet up for this, try and meet up for that. It's like anything you can think of, it's going to be right on that app.
Yeah, literally every single person has had the thought of like, why isn't there just a friendship app? If you've ever moved to a new city, you know that there is not one, and it's just because dudes are horny.
Yeah, that's the entirety of, I mean, look, how do you think all of these apps were pitched at the start? Like Tinder, Bumble, all of that. Oh, creating lasting relationships, blah, blah, blah. Look at it now. It's a cesspool. It is literally just, especially during quarantine when everybody's pent up and everything, it is likely just the Wild West out there.
Yeah, when you were walking around in your work sneakers this summer with when everything's opened back up, you might be doing some of that too. No judgment. Just saying.
Exactly. I do love how, like, Jon Favreau's in this as well. And I love how he kind of gets set up because Rashida Jones is best friends with Jon Favreau's wife in this movie. So they get set up on kind of a mandate. Jon Favreau has poker night and everything where just the guys come over. He's like, you need to get out of the house. I said it's poker night, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'll say this. He's so good at playing an asshole in this movie. It's insane.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, he is. It's also because we assume he's a good guy. We are told he's a good guy from Hollywood Inside buzz or whatever. Yeah. But wow, does he play the perfect asshole?
It's unbelievable. Even the look, the looks he gives the camera, just the subtle little things. Like, at the end, he's walking by. Obviously, the hangout doesn't go well. Paul Rudd's drinking with him, playing poker, has no clue how to play poker. He just gets thrown in. Jon Favreau's super confrontational with him. At the end, they're like chugging beer. They're playing whatever game. It's basically flip cup with glass. They're chugging. And Paul Rudd's kind of winning him over a little bit, chugging, wins the chug, and just projectile vomits all over Jon Favreau.
That scene is funny, though, because you talk about guys hanging out, and you talk about like the bro culture. Mm-hmm. I don't even think it's bro culture to say that you see it in the movie that if things aren't going well at a certain time of the night, if you're just hanging out with some guys and you're drinking beer, it's going to start becoming better.
Exactly.
And I think that's actually it's shown super well because they're finally like, if Paul Rudd can win them this drinking game, that's how dumb guys are. Most guys are, at least, that are like, okay, I like him now.
Well, even I love how they showed the parallel too of like he's drinking with Jon Favreau and all of them who are really just douchebags to him. And then he goes out and hangs out with Jason Segel and gets drinks. It turns from one beer into they're literally taking shots, just the two of them at the table. There's just that craziness of like pent up aggression from Jon Favreau and all of them to just like guys being dudes hanging out. Like,
yeah. And then he always has these little quips to him, Jon Favreau, like in the end after he puts up the billboards, he's like, nice face. What? On the billboards. And then he's like, oh yeah, my buddy City. He just goes, I don't care. And just walks away.
So good.
Just so mean to him.
Even when he's eating dinner at literally the engagement party. Like they're at the engagement party and Jon Favreau's sitting there, finished his appetizer super quick and just goes, yeah, I told her we got to get out of here after appetizers. And she's just like, what are you doing? Sit down.
Yeah, he's saying to her like, also the toothpick in the mouth. Just all the time. It makes his character so much more of an asshole.
I was, having not seen it, I was expecting a little bit more of a payoff when it came to like kind of getting back at him, which you get a little bit when Jason Segel makes the speech of like, he introduces everybody. He's like, guy with super hot wife. But, you never got that kind of good, get back at him kind of thing. And I don't think you really needed it. I think it was the back of my head a little bit, like, are they gonna do something to him? Where I guess throwing up on him was enough, but
no, that's a good point. I'd actually never thought of that. But what I would say is probably that you're supposed to love Paul Rudd's character, because it's Paul Rudd. So I think that it was better for them just to leave it. I think that him not doing anything, there's no stain on Paul Rudd's character.
Yeah. That's true. And that's almost what Jason Segel came in for, to kind of be that voice and do the things that he wasn't doing, like the billboards and kind of yelling at Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah.
First of all, gotta call out, Paul Rudd has now, with his Marvel stardom, been in a movie with two different Hulks. Let's just call it out now. That's kind of awesome.
Pretty cool that. Yeah, also that Lou Ferrigno had such a role in this. He's like, say that he's actually a nice guy because he is. Just a massive human, though. And that there were a lot of fun lines that came out of Lou Ferrigno, especially when Jason Segel comes up and tries to fight him for going with Rob Hubel in terms of selling his house. The Hulk has me in a sleeper hold. I don't think I can take it.
It's so good. Literally, he's like, and then at the wedding, Lou Ferrigno's standing there. And he goes, "I put him in the sleeper." So
Her
good.
cast is best men end up being a hilarious, just ragtag group. You have Lou Ferrigno, Joe Latruglio in his squeaky voice, Mel Stein, the old guy, Robbie, his dad,
Thomas Lennon. Okay, let's call out that his dad is J.K. Simmons, first of all. Insane.
I mean,
Just
this cast down to like what you were saying. You said Aziz Ansari, Nick Kroll.
Yeah.
Like everyone that we have said is such a great actor, and I think that's why this movie I think is it's a casual watch. You know, it's not really saying much. It's more of just a kick your feet back and enjoy movie. But that's why when you have all of this star power in, it helps out so much.
Exactly. It's a comedy movie for when you're not really feeling a rom-com, but you kind of are. So you're just in between. It has heart. Exactly. And then I just want to call out too, because I noticed I watched actually last week Palm Springs with Andy Samberg, and of course, who's in it? J.K. Simmons, which was awesome to have watched that movie, to see them like 10 years down the line and then come back and watch this movie. And I was like, holy shit, wait, these two are in it together and they're like bouncing off each other. That was really cool. I didn't know that little connection was there. I was like, oh, they haven't worked together before. That's cool in Palm Springs. And then I come back and 15 years before that, they're just, in I Love You Man together.
Yeah. And being a father and son duo. Something that we do want to point out, though, is there are a few really funny ongoing bits, and just most of them revolve around showing how awkward Paul Rudd is and how he can't hang out with guys. So the one where he's trying to come up with a nickname for Sydney, and it commonly comes at the end of phone calls. So the one phone call, he just says, you got it, Jobin, once. Like, who knows what Jobin is? And then you have what is actually, I won't give it out because, the people, they'll be clamoring for it. But my gamer tag is literally based on when he says, all right, see you later, City Slicker. He just says, like, he tries to come out of the top, and then just nothing makes sense. He just simply cannot make a good nickname.
See, I don't know. I think because, with the actors in this movie, you obviously had a lot of improv. But for it to seem like Paul Rudd does it so well where that could have been improv, but him doing improv in a way that seems like he was trying so hard to think of it and doing it so poorly, I think just elevates it to another level. It's like you could think of something great, probably, but then there's also the really shitty ones where it's like, all right, City Slicka, like, what are you saying?
Jobin, Mabush, he just says Mabush, like doesn't finish whatever he was going to say.
The look of disappointment every time he's like, you came up with Pistol, because Jason Segel calls him Pistol Pete, and that just flew right out of his mouth immediately the first time they met. Since then, he's been trying to get it back and just come up with that nickname and just can't.
That's a quote unquote dude thing to make nicknames for people. I think one last thing for Flick Takes that we need to mention, because it's a huge part of the movie, is let's take a step into Kevin's music corner really quick.
Let's do it.
Rush is such a big part of this movie, the band Rush. So when they're first hanging out, they're in Sydney's man cave and they talk about playing an instrument. So Sydney says he plays a little bit of everything, but he calls himself an axe man instead of just saying a guitar player. Which Paul Rudd, again, doesn't really know how to respond to someone saying something like that. And he's like, I used to slap a little bass in a high school jazz band. So you figure out that they both love Rush. They both play instruments, and then they just jam all the time. Rush actually makes an appearance in the movie at a pretty pivotal scene, actually. And having that music along to, I feel like Rush is a super good band. And in Role Models, we have another band, which we'll talk about when we get to that part of the podcast. Yeah. But not a band that I can say I listen to a whole lot. I went through my 80s music phase and listened to a lot of Rush, but I'm not like a mega fan. You have an appreciation for them just from watching this movie, though, I think.
Absolutely. And I feel like there's a rumor, and I've heard it from a few people, so don't kill the messenger here. I've heard it from a few people that it's generally known that there's a lot more guys who like Rush than girls who like Rush. for whatever reason. And so I think that almost, whether they were huge Rush fans coming into this, which they definitely could have been, and this was an excuse to write Rush into the script and have a cool concert, which is awesome. I mean,
I think it was.
I can so see that being the case.
Yeah.
But it plays up into the fact, maybe unintentionally, of like, this is about guys, you know, becoming friends and like going through this and kind of going to a Rush concert, and like literally he puts him on his shoulders. Jason Segel puts Paul Rudd on his shoulders during the concert. I don't know. I thought that was really an interesting scene.
That scene was especially interesting to me because you had, I think it was Limelight they were playing, like a nice, happy, kind of upbeat song, and then you see Jason Segel and Paul Rudd having a great time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what you actually care about in the scene is Rashida Jones just being like canceled out of Paul Rudd's mind when she's right next to him.
Exactly.
So that scene was so pivotal to the I guess, B plot of Rashida Jones and his engagement, which I thought was super interesting. I thought it was like a huge juxtaposition of the song. Normally you have a song like that progressing through, and technically it does with those two, but then it's like you see the divergence.
Exactly. That's where the real split, like that's one of the scenes where you see, that's kind of where it hits its peak and you kind of see everything starting to come downhill a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, freaking Rush is performing live and it's awesome.
Which is insane that they were actually in the movie.
Yeah. Well, actually, we'll talk about them in a little bit too, but.
All right.
Anything else for flick takes?
All right. Super weird that Jason Segel was wearing Uggs on the beach. Just got to call it out.
His outfit choices, like, that's actually something I just genuinely didn't really understand. Like, I guess, he's like a free spirit, doesn't care what he looks like, but I just wasn't sure exactly how that fit into his character. He's dressed like a weirdo.
I guess just being an oddball. Like, he lets his dog shit on the boardwalk.
Yeah, I mean, that's just an asshole move. If you're listening and you let your dog shit and don't clean it up,
well, let's say there's levels to it. If it's on like a hike and it's off to the side, you're fine. Don't pick it up. It's gonna, become compost. It's good for the environment. If nobody's gonna step in it unless they're going to take a piss themselves and they're off the trail, you're fine. If it's in the middle of the trail, kick it a little bit. If it's on pavement or concrete, fuck you. That's it.
That's fair, I guess. I mean, yeah, you're right. It becomes less egregious.
Yeah.
I think just pick it up. Like, I'm assuming if you're taking a hike, you're assuming your dog's going to shit. You bring the bags.
But it's not every time you need to pick it up. Like, if it's off the side of the trail and, like...
Just be a decent person, Matthew.
Yeah, but nobody's going to walk in it. You're in the woods and you're just going to go down and be like, you know what? There's a garbage can here nearby that really needs some shit piled in it. Rather than just leaving it in the woods... where the deer go poo-poo and it grows the trees, it's good for the environment, Kevin. What do you...
I guess it is. I guess you're right.
Throw it in a
I'm
plastic
not
bag.
willing to secede right now. We'll revisit this at some point. Off pod.
Duh. All right. Any takes from you had other than the dog shit quandary?
No, I think we got through it all. I feel like we really discussed it.
Yeah.
Got all our takes out there. Now let's tell the good people some facts that you might not have known, hopefully didn't know. The first one is about basically how it got made. So this script is actually pretty old at this point because it was originally written in the 90s. So it took 11 years for this movie to get made. And they first made the title Let's Be Friends, which literally sounds like, you know how like a Mandarin or like a Russian title will get translated to English or vice versa. It literally sounds like, this sounds to me for some reason German. Like, I feel like the German the German title of I Love You Man would be Let's Be Friends.
That's like when it gets translated, it's Iron Man and it goes somewhere else and it's like the man who is made of iron. And it's like, what? How did it get there? It's
So it was supposed to be Let's Be Friends, and then it goes through 11 years of... So actually the director, John Hamburg, saw it multiple times, but he was doing a lot of different projects at the time. So it took that long for him to be like, okay, I'm going to take this movie, but let's rewrite the script. So, he liked the concept, rewrote the script because he wanted more sex jokes and he wanted it to be like completely R-rated. So after that 11-year time period, they start production and they make I Love You Man, not Let's Be Friends.
So much better. Let's Be Friends sounds like a children's book.
Yeah, it really does. It sounds like trying to pull a children's author, but I can't. Oh, Dave Pickle,
Roald Dahl,
maybe.
Shel Silverstein. Let's list them off. Come on.
Keep going.
Let's go. That's about it. Okay.
That's about it. So yeah, we're happy that took as long as it did, then got the rewrite it needed to make this movie. Something about a little short form thing. So we talk about sketch comedy a lot, and the man who is in everything, I would say he's at least been in 80% of the movies we've talked about, Matt Walsh. So Matt Walsh made a quick cameo in this movie when they were golfing, and it actually came from a UCB sketch that they called, a UCB sketch from the group Ass Pennies, and it was just about a really impatient golfer. So they gave Matt Walsh the nod to come in, and he does the ready to play, ready to play, ready to play, ready to play.
It's so good. I mean, honestly, you got to be ready to play. I somewhat agree with you.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. When you're out on the course, it's whenever you're ready.
Ready to play, ready to play. It's such a great sketch too. I love that they threw that in there. They paid homage to the sketch comedy that a lot of these movies, stems from. I love it. A little thing that's not sketch or improv, just something cool about the movie. Cool is one way to put it. Interesting is another. Maybe it was tactical, probably. But Jason Segel, he basically every time you go to his house in this movie, it's in his man cave, which is in the back. It's got the drum set. It's got the jerk-off seat that he keeps and always sits in. It's got basically everything you could need back there. You never see the inside of his real house. You only see the detached man cave in the back.
Yeah. I feel like that's perfect for Siegel's character, though, because you don't really need to know what's going on behind the scenes. You just need to know about his coolness that brings out Paul Rudd.
I don't know. I would what do you think the interior is like in that house where he had the 6-foot-long sub sandwich?
I feel like it's probably pretty empty. I feel like he over decorated the man cave. I feel like the inside's just not that interesting.
I feel like he spends most of his time in the man cave too. So it's like, why even go in the house? You got everything you need back there. You're just trying to jam to some Rush.
Speaking of Rush and jamming, so a TV show that's getting released on streaming this week, which I'm extremely excited about, shout out Judd, is Freaks and Geeks. So Jason Segel was in Freaks and Geeks, and his character was actually a fan of it back then too, in that show. So the song that Sidney plays with Peter in the movie at first is Tom Sawyer, Rush's most famous song, and it's actually featured in the episode titled Smooching and Mooching in Freaks and Geeks.
Look at that. You love all these connections. I feel like there's a lot of connections to Freaks and Geeks throughout because, I mean, it was one season, but it made so many careers. It was so kind of revolutionary.
Oh, yeah. We might do a Sincerely Unqualified reacts on that.
I would love
Such
to.
a good show.
I'll rip through that series.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah. So, alongside Freaks and Geeks, very similar, there are people, as we mentioned before, with Andy Samberg and J.K. Simmons, who are in other movies with each other. They have this rapport going. But Jason Segel and Paul Rudd work together again in Forgetting Sarah Marshall when Jason Segel's the main character and Paul Rudd plays the surfing instructor, who was, I think, my favorite character when we did that review. Maybe it was yours. He's absolutely somebody's.
Yeah, you got it. You did get that one because I picked the really big guy.
Yep. Oh, it's honestly a coin flip for whoever gets there's a clear best character in a lot of these movies, but we try to play fair. But basically in both of these movies, something funny is that they both just enjoy getting tacos together.
Yeah, tacos are great.
Yeah.
I feel like that's perfect too. It's like the nice laid back thing to do, warm weather I feel like that's pretty synonymous with tacos, which actually, now that I said that out of my mouth, that sounds like a ridiculous statement, and I'm standing by it.
I can't disagree. I got to be honest. I
It's
want
not
to
gonna be
disagree
cold.
with
You're gonna
you.
eat tacos.
I want to disagree with you a lot, but eating taco, like when I think perfect weather for eating tacos, you think sitting outside in the sun
Yeah.
with either a margarita or something, and
Yep.
you're just enjoying life. Like tacos on a tray with some guac, some chips, unlimited guac and chips. Like it's a different vibe.
It's not gonna be 12 degrees in Brooklyn and you're chowing down on a nice barbacoa taco.
I mean, it is, but it's just not the same feeling. It's not the same feeling at all.
Or you don't want it to be, yeah.
No. Find your beach, okay? You find it with beer, not tacos.
Yeah.
So another interesting thing with Jason Segel, aside from him liking to eat tacos, is in one of the scenes when he basically tries to fight Lou Ferrigno and he puts him in a sleeper hold. So during a press interview with Jason Segel, he said that on set, a former pro wrestler who made the sleeper hold famous was Dusty Rhodes. He was coaching Lou Ferrigno on how to properly do the move, and without any pretense, without any warning, he walked up to Jason Segel and basically told him, "You got to be tough today," and smacked him in the face.
I mean, that's just you hear about these things, and a lot of them are like, "Oh wow, that's crazy." I don't know if I need the pro wrestler smacking Jason Segel in the face.
Yeah, no, that's
like, come on, he probably would have done fine. Like, it's not a big deal.
It's safe to say that he would have been okay without that.
Yeah. So, hey, listen, Dusty Rhodes, calling you out right now. You're an asshole, man. Put me in a sleeper hold.
Yeah, do it. I feel like that would. I put him in a sleeper hold.
I'm gonna put you in a sleeper hold. Do we want to move on now? We got to get our favorites out. So
yeah,
we'll
let's
go
do
character for character first. Winnie, I'll let you go.
All right. I love his, like, this is, again, my first time seeing this movie, just the sheer shock value of all the lines and the amount that he appeared in it. I got to go with Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah, he's a lovable guy. Very nice character.
His lines always hit, and, you know, he's just doing his thing out there, this gigantic human. Even lines about him were great. Just
Yeah, there were a lot of good lines about him. He did add a really funny kind of novelty part to this movie.
Yeah, definitely. What about you?
Mine is a little more of a cameo. Not a cameo because he's recurring throughout the movie, but Thomas Lennon. So when he's this gay guy, then the whole thing behind his character introduction is that Andy Samberg, his brother, told Peter not to go to dinner with anyone because it would give off the wrong vibe. And you're not sure if it did or not until after the dinner he goes in and just starts making out with them aggressively. So Peter doesn't call him back, and then when they're trying on tuxes, it's Paul Rudd and Jason Segel. He walks up and he just delivers a great line that I will say. Actually, I'll say it during lines, but. Very, very funny, just the premise of his character, what happens to him in the beginning, and then just keeps showing back up. I love Thomas Lennon in this movie.
So great. He was so great. He added a whole nother level that I really wasn't expecting to be in this movie. Like, when I heard about the don't go to dinner with people, I was like, all right, they might throw one or two things in that, but he was really throughout, just hammering that down.
Yeah, he got in there with the kiss, too.
Oh, yeah.
Just in there. I am going to go on to scene for scene here with some, we'll say it in the sports sense, chalk. So it's easy for me to pick. It's the wedding. The wedding scene at the end when everything comes together and you have every single character basically that you wanted there.
Exactly.
So you were mentioning Lou Ferrigno, and I put him in a sleeper hold. So for all of those things, the little side characters, Joe Latruglio's like doing a squeaky voice, and then obviously it's just the resolve of the movie. It is definitely a basic answer, but I am going to take the wedding.
I think that's a good choice. I think it's a safe choice. You're playing it safe.
You're right. You're
playing it safe, but you know what? Safe wins games. And I think that that's a great choice. If you were on the ropes, you're going to go with that.
Yep.
I am going with the initial voicemail that he leaves that's like 3 minutes long, and he's just sitting in the office just going on and on and on and doesn't know how to end it.
Yeah, the worst part of that is that he's in his office. Like,
Yeah.
people were able to hear him. You can't do that.
No. I hate when people I know hear me on the phone. Like, if I'm in an office and I'm doing that, I'm leaving. I'm quitting my job. I put in my 2 weeks right after that happens.
He didn't, though. He stuck it out.
Got some nice billboards.
Got some billboards out of it.
Oh, yeah. Call it a day.
Moving on to line for line here. I'll start again. This is the line I was talking about. So it's when Thomas Lennon basically confronts Paul Rudd when he's with Jason Segel. Jason Segel has no clue what happened, and he didn't know about the whole trying to meet friends thing either. So before it, he says, it took a lot of nerve to spend a fantastic evening with someone and not call them back. And he says he wished he could take the kiss back. And then delivers the line, "It was the taste of betrayal, you fucking whore."
I love Thomas Lennon's delivery of everything. He's got such a specific way of doing it.
Yes, only he could do that.
Yeah, you fucking whore.
Yeah, that was my favorite line by far.
Okay, so Rob Hubel was in it for a little. He was also in The Other Guys. He's the cop in The Other Guys who calls out Dirty Mike and the boys, the note, everything. He's spotted across our universe.
Yep.
He delivers this line about selling the Lou Ferrigno estate, where they're basically talking about dealing with Lou Ferrigno and how to approach selling the house, and he's like, "You're dealing with the house of a major Hollywood celebrity, the Hulk from television." And
the Hulk from television.
That just got me.
Yeah, for some reason, the from television makes that line hilarious.
Yeah.
Mine comes from probably one of the best actors in this movie. We were talking about him, J.K. Simmons. So it's also the best fictional name. Well, maybe not fictional. I'm sure someone has this name. And if you do, congratulations.
You won.
But it is so recognizable. So the line itself is when they're at the wedding and he's talking to Paul Rudd and Andy Samberg's character. And he goes, "You guys are both my best friends. And Hank Mardukas." So it's like a callback from earlier in the movie when he's talking about how Hank Mardukas is his best friend because they're on the subject of male friends, and Hank Mardukas gets mentioned. And
he's
that
like,
name lives in infamy.
I have two best friends, Robbie and Hank Mardukas. And Hank's there and he just waves.
Yeah. You see Hank. Oh, that's the best part of it too. You get the Hank character reveal.
My last line is from The Old Man when Paul Rudd asks him, like, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" He just goes, he's like, "You free?" And he's like, "I'm 89 years old. What the fuck kind of plans would I have?"
Mel Stein. That's the guy.
Yep, that's him. Goat.
All right. So let's move on to role models now.
Let's do it. Let's jump in.
Let's shift. Another Paul Rudd-led movie. Why don't you give us the breakdown?
All right.
Of role models?
First of all, let's start off with how this movie was rated, because there's a critic consensus on Rotten Tomatoes, and then there's the audience. Usually comedies go a little higher with the audience.
Yep.
This one, not so much. 77 critics, 74 audience. I have to disagree wholeheartedly with both of them because this is high 80s, low 90s. Absolutely. Rewatch it, I dare you. These critics from 2006, wherever the fuck, they need to reevaluate because a lot of them, don't know what's going on. Basically.
Interestingly, because I don't think we mentioned it with I Love You Man. I Love You Man is 83-74. So they have the same audience rating, which is the one that you would assume is more correct. But the critics like this one less. Yeah,
which is I guess because there's a lot more of this, you could say childish humor, but I won't say that because I love it.
Cruder.
It's crude, exactly.
Crude.
It hit. This is why it's rated R. It's rated R because it goes for that kind of humor. Mm-hmm. And I saw a whole website that a woman made dedicated to every different thing. It was like drugs, paraphernalia, blah, 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 and a paragraph about why it was bad in the movie. Look, 2006, do something else. Anything else. I wonder where you are today.
Anything else with your life.
Literally anything else. Maybe
you have
don't
too much
make
time
a website.
on your hands.
She saw the GoDaddy.com commercial in 2006 and was like, well, I got an idea for this shit.
She saw Danica Patrick and she was like, damn it, I'm in.
Exactly. She could have made Yelp, but instead she made whyihaterolemodels.com. That's not the actual address or URL, but you'll have to find it. basically with this movie, so we have Danny and Wheeler, and Danny is played by Paul Rudd, our guy. Wheeler is played by Sean William Scott, known also from, American Pie movies. He's Stifler. I feel like that's his, resounding role. He's very well known for Stifler. Great role that made his career, I would say. I don't really know what he did before that, but basically the two are salesmen for an energy drink company called Minotaur, which is essentially like, I guess you could say kind of like Red Bull, but on steroids. And it said their whole job is to go travel from school to school, like middle school and elementary schools, and push Minotaur and say drugs are bad to these kids.
Yeah, 'cause that's so much better.
Exactly. And they're both, Danny's 35. He's in a relationship with Elizabeth Banks. He's super unhappy with his job. One of the first scenes is him actually coming back to the office from this day at this middle school where they're pushing $6 cans of poison. And it finds out, he gets back and there's a 10-year anniversary of his, being at the company.
Mm-hmm.
He's sitting there with Elizabeth Banks and is really just going through his head and being like, what am I doing? I thought I would be doing something else. Like, I don't want to be doing this brainless job, blah, blah, blah. It said like having a midlife crisis kind of thing.
Yeah.
He becomes incredibly irritable, kind of like depressed, hates his job, hates everything. And one day kind of goes off the rails a little bit, gives a really bad, or Elizabeth Banks breaks up with him because he's so irritable. He calls that like a venti not being a real size.
An old Starbucks rant.
Exactly, which we love to see. That was great. But he breaks up, Elizabeth Banks breaks up with him. He goes kind of on a downward spiral, ends up giving kids a speech about do whatever you want. Drugs are good. You could do drugs. This is not good for you, Minotaur. He gets in a fight with the parking attendant who's towing his car. They crash it into the school mascot statue, which is
the statue out front,
of the horse, which is the giant bull truck that they have on top of the horse. And Elizabeth Banks is a lawyer. They go to her. They're like, what can we do? They're like, it's either 30 days in jail or you do 150 hours of community service for this Sturdy Wings program, which is run by Jane Lynch. It's essentially like, big brother, big sister. You're acting like their guardian kind of thing, hanging out with them, good community service. From there, we meet Ronnie and we meet Augie, who are played by two incredible actors, Bobby J. Thompson, and of course our guy Christopher Mintz-Plasse.
Better known as McLovin. Yeah.
Exactly.
But that the child acting in this is incredible. I mean, just ridiculous. Bobby J. Thompson, like he delivers probably the best child acting comedic performance I think we've ever seen.
I've ever seen in my entire life. I gotta say, his delivery is incredible. And
he just gets it.
Yeah, he had the timing. He had everything. He was Marcus PSP. Please, anybody remember those commercials? Like, I still say it to this day.
He
Marcus PSP. Like, no context or anything to it. But he was a huge star. And it's because he knew what he was doing. He was the incredible child actor that you could put in this movie. And he distracts from the fact that he's a kid because his comedic timing and his sense of when to say things and how is so good that you almost forget that he's 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's incredible. And then you have Jane Lynch running this program, and Jane Lynch is a recovering alcoholic drug addict. Like, it's incredible. We'll talk about that whole thing. But essentially, they go down this path. They start off hating each other, trying to figure out how they're going to mesh with these kids. Augie is into like LARP and all of that, like fake fighting, like the I don't know how to technically describe it.
Live action role playing.
Exactly.
So this is the one thing that something I realized about this movie is they try to live outside the box of reality. So everything parallels something. We were talking about Red Bull with Minotaur, which they do successfully. Then they do a Starbucks rant, literally calling out the sizes and everything, but they don't put the Starbucks logo on it. Like it's a random coffee shop. And then also with LARP, they literally do, their acronym is live action interactive role playing experience. So instead of just being like, yes, this is LARP, live action role playing, they add an interactive and they make the R a double word. and then put experience at the end, so it like kind of makes sense. Just something that I didn't honestly quite get. Like, if you're gonna call it out that specifically, just make it the thing.
I know, I was wondering why they were going back and forth with Lair and LARP and all that stuff, and I was like, I don't really, understand if they're trying to make it different or something like that. But
I don't know if it was a bit or not, honestly.
I don't either. I really couldn't tell, and I loved it a little bit too much that they just kept messing it up. I didn't know if they were just in post-editing, like, okay, well, they said all different things, but we'll just make it work.
Yeah.
Let's just make it work. So Augie is super into LARP, but he's kind of like, he's a knight of, his own kind of weird country with our guy Joe Latruglio, who's in that with him. And then there's the ruling country who's got Ken Jeong in it as the king.
Yeah.
Then we have on the other side, so Augie is paired up with Paul Rudd. So those two are kind of conflicting because Paul Rudd has just faced like the most real shit in his entire life. Got broken up with, is spiraling in depression, and Augie is just completely trying to avoid that because he's genuinely going through some shit and just putting it out of his mind and like avoiding the real world and stuff. And then we have Stifler, our guy Wheeler, our guy Sean William Scott, who is paired up with Ronnie, and Ronnie is the child of a single mother who just needs somebody to hang out with. He's like a foul-mouthed, nobody can handle him for more than a day at this program. And then Sean William Scott comes in as this free-flying bachelor who's just going to try and rein him in, I think that was a great pair too.
Yeah, I like how they paired him up. I think that worked really well. Obviously, the movie goes on. You have your downfall, then you have your redemption, and then the redemption in the end is. That's why I'm happy that they had this LARP thing, because I think probably what happened with the LARP, they can't directly call out LARP because it could be seen as making fun of it, but I actually think it made it pretty interesting. Like, I think that obviously it took its shots because it's kind of easy to, but when you have that whole scene at the end to bring everything together, I thought it was set really well to that like fake battle.
Oh yeah, everything came, and you kind of learned to not I don't know, you had fun with it at the end. No matter how you felt about it at the beginning, whether you thought like, oh, this is a little odd or anything like that, you had fun with it at the end, which is how it's supposed to be. I mean, whether it's a comedy or not, you bring all the good together and you had a great time with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And something basically just throughout the whole movie that's probably worth noting is that the director, David Wayne, is actually more of a sketch comedy guy. So he did Mad TV stuff, and he did Wet Hot American Summer was his main thing. So he was actually with Paul Rudd before that. So this movie is pretty heavily improv too, which I think you can that comes along with the feel, especially I bet with some of the crudeness. They were like, hey, don't hold back, be crude, improv, whatever, let's do it.
Exactly. And that's why I gotta call out, this was I think my number 6 on my top movies.
No, I actually think it broke your top 5.
Really? I mean, either way, wherever it placed, it's staying right there after the rewatch. It is staying there because it hit so many bases, and I hadn't watched it in a little, but I know all of the lines and everything. I know anything that happens, and it still was great to rewatch. Like, okay, let's go through. We mentioned like a few of the key players, but let's just recap them for everybody.
Yep.
So we have Paul Rudd, Sean William Scott, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Bobby J. Thompson, Jane Lynch, Carrie Kenny, and Joe Latruglio. On top of that, you have Elizabeth Banks.
Yeah, I mean, a star-studded cast. Oh, Ken Jeong too. We already mentioned
Ken Jeong. We didn't even.
Yeah, a very, very good cast that works really well off each other, and it was interesting how they paired them too. Obviously, you can do that from the Big Brother Big Sister thing, the Sturdy Wings program. A good amount of bits throughout this one too. I think you're right though. Like with it holding up, I absolutely agree. And I actually think that this is a little, I would throw the underrated flag on it, because I don't think many people like really talk about this movie the way they should, as one of the better ones out of the 2000s.
Oh, wait, you know who we forgot too? Keegan-Michael Key makes an appearance.
Oh, yeah. That's basically a cameo, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Still,
it's a good one.
Love it. But I think that this movie needs to be mentioned in so many more conversations. Because if you're looking for a good watch and you're between all of the comedies of its day, it kind of gets overshadowed by the instant classics, where we talked about a lot of them before, where you have the Anchormans, you have the Forgetting Sarah Marshalls, all of that. Now, this should be an instant classic. I think the R rating on it and the crudeness takes it almost out of that category for a lot of people, and that's why it doesn't get the recognition that it deserves.
Yeah, I think so. But then again, like, look at Superbad. Everyone thinks that Superbad is great. I think this is probably a different kind of crude. They're obviously different feels of the movies. But I would definitely agree. I think that we can put the underrated flag on it.
Yeah. So I love, like, the little details that they throw in. So let's, like, first of all, when they're driving the Minotaur truck, which is just a giant bull.
Just a ridiculous vehicle.
Yeah. I mean, it's got a nose ring on it like a giant bull. It's everything. Sean William Scott is wearing a Minotaur costume for all of this. Like, when he's pitching this to schools, he's in the Minotaur suit.
Yeah.
And just, like, the middle schoolers he's walking by throw insults at him like, hey, nice Minotaur suit, idiot, or something like that. Probably way more vulgar.
It was.
But he's just like,
they
oh,
said
I took
the
it.
F
Yeah.
word. It's not,
I know.
Yeah.
Definitely not idiot. But he's like, oh, I took it from your mom last night. Tell her thanks or something. I mean,
early in the movie.
Yeah, like first 5 minutes.
That's a set the tone line right there.
Yeah. They go out and this truck is insane. What I loved about it is when he's driving it to get it off the tow truck and it goes up onto the other horse.
Yeah.
The license plate for the first time you see is just unleashed. And I don't know. That for me, that just
like Unleash the Beast. Yeah.
Unleash the Beast.
They keep saying that.
And also just like it broke the chain and got off. So I was like, oh, unleashed. And now he's unleashed and just on top of another horse.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. You had a few other things though, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So later on in the movie, when we meet the king at his diner. So first of all, Ken Jeong, before they hang out, before they go to LARP, all of him and his posse. So he's the king. He's the king of Cassidonia, as they call it. They essentially have this crew that is his servants or like knights that protect him everything because he's the king.
Yeah, his like protectors or whatever, yeah.
Across the street from where they LARP is this burger hole. So they go inside, and when Paul Rudd goes inside to talk to him, they're all eating at the burger hole. They're in this U-shaped kind of table. He goes up and starts talking to him. Number one, the fact that they're talking in olden speak, and Ken Jeong's like, oh, what beeth, blah, blah, blah. And the waitress then comes up in the middle of them doing that and is like, all right, everybody know their orders.
They always, you said that they always eat there before a battle. So it's this place called the Burger Hole, too.
Yeah.
It's a gross
Just Ken
name.
Jeong breaking character and going, oh, yeah, that's me, thank you.
Yeah.
And then the little things of like Matt Walsh, who we mentioned before, being his side character, his number one right-hand man, is salting his food, like putting pepper on his food. And when Paul Rudd gets a little too loud with him, he grabs like a really dull pancake cutting knife to like, protect him in the burger hole. That was insane. Like those little things that just make you die laughing. I mean...
Yeah, no, absolutely. By the way, Witty dropped something, so he's completely away from the mic. Yeah, those are all great. They're like, that was basically one of those bits. I think another few good bits. One is, and we'll talk about this later for sure, Jane Lynch just talking about her past drug addiction being like so out there in their face. Jane Lynch plays this really odd character. And another one I would definitely say that I really liked was the all the Kiss stuff. So Kevin's Music Corner. When they were playing Love Gun and they were Sean William Scott was trying to explain to Ronnie like what they were actually all about, and he gets Ronnie into Kiss. It's a cool way of them like finding a middle ground on something Ronnie would never have known about if he wasn't introduced to Sean William Scott in this movie. And then in the end, the reason that I know the song Beth by Kiss is when Paul Rudd sings it, and it's just not too well, which is fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Makes
Look,
it better.
you can't be good at everything, okay?
No,
you can't be good at everything. I do
then
love, like, throughout how they have the little connections. Like, the two, like, pairs slowly start coming together. And,
As like a group of four. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because obviously you're going to be really pissed at Paul Rudd for doing that if you're Sean William Scott, like basically getting him arrested. So they're not at a good place. They come back together, and then at the same time, they're getting closer with their littles and actually want to do it out of the goodness of their heart as opposed to just this court order. So, it's a movie. That's it's obviously going to happen, but it warms our hearts. It's good. It has heart. This is a very solid movie.
Finding out about Augie's parents, too, when you see that dinner for the first time, that was just like, oh, shit. Yeah, that was when you figure out, like, okay, he's going through some shit. The mom's just like, oh, you're taking off the cape finally? Finally. Like, we'll burn it. We'll have a bonfire. And you're like, oh, okay, cool.
That's one of those things. It's a direct call out to, like, you don't know what you don't know about someone. So, like, you could think whatever you want online. And that's what happens to us this whole movie. You're just like, oh, this kid's really weird. There's a reason he's weird. So,
exactly.
Yeah. Did you have anything else with flick takes, or do you want to move on to Inexclusive exclusives?
One last thing. I do love the little bit that they have ongoing about Minotaur itself, about how they start pissing green after they drink so much.
It's like Shrek's piss.
And Sean William Scott, he's just like, oh, dude, we've been just jacked up on Minotaur all day. It's not healthy. We're selling poison to kids. And Sean William Scott's just like, dude, it's got juice in it.
No, yeah. I think the line is like, we're selling poison to kids or something. It's not poison. It has juice in it. Yeah, that was so good. Yeah, obviously, energy drinks aren't that good for you people.
Definitely not. But, if you're pushing them over drugs, I guess you could say one's better than the other.
Yeah, basically.
Probably.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Let's go on to Inexclusive exclusives. Why don't you kick us off there?
All right. So, obviously, every movie we do, it's got improv. It's got to have improv.
We love talking about improv.
We love improv. So, this movie had its fair share of improv, and the writers were doing constant rewrites with ideas and everything during filming and rewriting stuff after filming it and things like that. But they actually had to stop because of the 2007 writer's strike. I just said that. Why did I say it like that?
Writer's strike.
Writer's strike. But
you sound like you're trying to do the, what's that SNL?
Harry Carey?
Nah, maybe not Harry Carey. More I think it's Dana Carvey's Gerald Ford. Or no, I think of Gerald Ford because he's like, Gerald Ford is dead today from an overdose on cocaine.
That sounds like Harry Carey too.
No, it does not.
Harry Carey here.
Yeah, I guess. Well, yeah, they're supposed to be newscasters, but if anyone's listening and is getting my references, the Gerald Ford's dead today after being mauled in a convenience store by a circus lion. He's doing all these things like they're trying to get out ahead of Gerald Ford's death. So
my God.
They're recording a lot of like B-roll. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That sounds great.
The writers strike.
The writer's strike. But essentially there was a writer's strike in 2007 that they had to stop everything, all these rewrites for. But there was one improvised line one day, and we're not actually sure what it was, but it caused our guy Paul Rudd to pee his pants from laughing so hard.
That's good stuff. That's how you know you had a good laugh.
That's a good day on set.
Yeah. Have you ever peed your pants from laughing?
There have been times where it gets close when you are with your friends and there's just one thing that you say.
Yeah. It goes to like that next level. If you're in that bout of laughter where you're just freaking out and then someone says something else, you don't think you can laugh harder, and then it goes up from there. But I don't know if I've ever peed my pants.
I don't think I definitely never have peed my pants. For a grown man to pee himself laughing, it was probably
like a consummate professional.
Oh, yeah.
That's how you know he's having a good time with it, too. You love
on
hearing
set
that.
With all these other people too, and you're working and everything like that, for it to have been that good, I would pay to see that.
Yeah.
Like, just to hear what it was.
Yeah. We're not sure what it was, But what it might not have been. How about that for a transition?
Whoa.
Whoa. The song that they referenced, Love Take Me Down to the Streets, they do it a few times, and it's actually sung a few times before the end credits roll through and the song is playing. So they're talking about, I think it's Paul McCartney. Yeah, Paul McCartney. And they're talking about Wings, because like of the Sturdy Wings thing.
Yeah.
And that song actually doesn't exist. So just they made up a song to put in as a bit that people get confused whether it's Wings or not. And it's not a real song. Like they recorded it and they had a Paul McCartney impersonator record the song and to play at the end. So it's like that's a bit right there.
Yeah.
Just to try to confuse people.
That is a hardcore bit. That is like the bittiest bit in a movie that you could get.
Do you know how many people probably were like talking to their significant other, like trying to pretend like they know music? Like, no, yeah, that's a Wings song. That's definitely a Wings song. And then they realize it just doesn't exist. Or I bet, unless you looked it up, because I just figured it was a real song.
So did I. I thought they were making a joke. Sir Paul probably even saw it and he goes, that wasn't me.
He probably got a kick out of it. The guy's got a good sense of humor.
Oh, absolutely. But I can imagine so many people being Wings fans or Beatles fans being so confused after that. Just being like, how have I never heard this? Oh my gosh, their head kind of exploding. Like, what do you mean I haven't heard this song?
Yeah, or if it's like just commonly confused. Like there are songs that you don't know who they're by, or like it's confusing who it's by. So that's what I thought. I thought it was like a well-known thing that this song was confusing. But no, it just doesn't exist.
It's just guys trying to mess with your head, which they actually did.
It's incredible.
So another thing of kind of trying to mess with someone's head, per se. So on set, because of all the dialogue and everything, just the R-rated nature of the movie and the child actors being involved, specifically Bobby Thompson. So the actors would realistically, like a lot of the time, just be talking to an empty chair just because they couldn't have a child actor in the scenes for that kind of profanity. So in one scene in Wheeler's apartment, you see the line like, you see, Ronnie, you get it? His dick is the gun. So Sean William Scott said that just to the pinball machine and not to anybody because they had to film it without, him in the room. But they played by the rules for the most part, but sometimes they deliberately went against them to kind of get the best out of the take. Yeah. So Bobby J. Thompson was like 10 when they were making this movie. Mm-hmm. So he had a teacher on set with him who would judge essentially what was appropriate for him to do or say or hear and what wasn't. But when the teacher got distracted, or they would distract the teacher on purpose, the director would just have Bobby Thompson say things or listen to things that he wasn't really supposed to.
Yeah. It's so funny that you like we were talking about, you forget how he's young and then you go back and read this and you're like, oh yeah, wait, this kid was 10. Of course he had someone around to be like, no, you can't say that in front of a child. And then the director, I bet some people could get upset about that, but I'm sure he turned out well.
Like, look, I don't think he was legitimately opening the tent flap to see that woman lying there. I think that would have crossed a few boundaries.
There's no way. Yeah, I think it was mainly just dialogue that they were trying to shield him from, and then I have to believe that it was only dialogue and not tits.
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe to say.
Yeah.
Like they're cool with that, but no dialogue. They're just like, yeah, go ahead. What's in the tent?
Hey, why don't you go check out what's over there? You might like it.
Hey, get the camera. Get the camera.
If you don't,
what's in the
fine
tent
too.
over there,
We love
Bobby?
you just the best. Just the same. So along the child actor route, so obviously there was a huge age discrepancy between Bobby J. Thompson and Christopher Mintz-Plasse. So originally, the way the characters were written, they were both supposed to be somewhat around the same age. So it was glaringly obvious that Christopher Mintz-Plasse was like it was very old to be in this program. They actually had to rewrite his character and include it to make more sense, because when they were going through the audition process, he was just so great for the role that they knew they needed to. So they basically took a step away from what they originally had and went with Christopher Mintz-Plasse because when he was auditioning, they were just like, no, like, this is worth the extra effort. This is worth the rewrite. We got to do this.
Absolutely. And he's so worth it. I mean, they had to do kind of the opposite thing for Superbad, where he was underage, similar to Bobby J. Thompson, and they had to have like his mom on set for certain things that he had to do. For this, they kind of reworked the script so that he could be older, which definitely played off, because it's like even better that the kid who's LARPing and everything is coming of age or being like a 17-year-old.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like, you couldn't really have a young person that's into LARPing, and that's so central to this movie, actually. Funny enough, it really is. Like, that is an important part of this movie.
Oh, yeah. Like, that's one of the mainstays of this movie, is that he is probably 16, 17, hasn't really been in a relationship, hasn't really spoken to women, and kind of one of his arcs is really just finding the courage to talk to that one girl who ends up becoming the queen. And she's like, oh, do you want to become my king? Like,
hell yeah, he does.
Yeah. Can I kiss you now? That was great. And I think it would have been, I don't think this movie would have had the staying power it does had he been 13. It would have just been so, of course you can have a 13-year-old do that, but it doesn't have the same effect because you're still in your mind almost like, all right, they can be doing that. They're still a kid. Like, let them go do their thing. It's not.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Yeah. So the two main characters in this movie that we'll dive into a little bit, we dove into Wheeler, we dove into Danny. They refer to each other and themselves as Dragon and Nighthawk. Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly referred to themselves as the same things in Step Brothers. Coincidence?
Yeah. I would assume not, right?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Do you? I want to know how that happened.
I don't know. I mean, so Step Brothers came out in 2008, and this movie also came out in 2008. How does that happen? Who knows? Inside info. Insider
trading?
Yeah.
Is there a deal that somebody was like, you write this movie, you help me write this movie, I'll help you write that movie, and we just both kind of include Dragon and Nighthawk in them?
I think what happened was some people who had assholes for parents that were named Dragon and Nighthawk paid a lot of money for them to write it in these scripts to get it normalized.
Yeah. 2 movies in the same year, like, that's an advertising campaign. That's like...
Yeah, someone's parents liked meth too much about 17 years previously, and now they have a child.
Or that's an advertisement for the Game of Thrones books.
Ooh. Sarah Duncan Egg coming out. Good stuff. I read.
Okay, we get it. Oh, are you better than everybody now? You know what happens?
Yeah, of course.
He's that guy.
So we were talking about Kiss, and actually all the Kiss-related stuff needed to be greenlit. So you do that through Gene Simmons, and that actually ended up making Gene Simmons like pretty involved with this movie. He kind of knew what was going on in the back end and had to get it approved. So he was even at the premiere of this movie.
Which is awesome to have just Gene Simmons helping out with everything Kiss. That's like having Rush in your movie. Look, gotta say, Paul Rudd's had his run-ins with some famous musicians in these 2 movies alone.
Yeah. I actually didn't hear anything, or I have not heard anything if Paul Rudd's a big music guy, but I bet
it seems like
it. Yeah. I feel like that's probably I feel like it's not a coincidence. Like, I feel like Paul Rudd has that staying power to be like, we need to put these in.
Yeah. Or the directors are just like, on the same wavelength again, where it's just kind of like, all right, we're going to we're going to have these rock references, or we're going to have rock involved in this movie.
Yeah. And I know we're happy it did, because it definitely added a lot of depth to the movie. Oh yeah, you want to jump into characters? Let's do it. Give me yours. You got the number one.
Obvious. If you disagree with me, you are wrong. It's Bobby J. Thompson. also known as Ronnie, also known as Marcus, PSP.
There you go. You got to say it.
I needed to say it. I need to say it as many times as possible.
You're contractually obligated to say Marcus PSP. Yeah,
Look,
no, I mean, I would agree.
I looked up the commercials the other day just to see him again. Yeah, they're awesome.
Tell us why. I mean, we've already talked about him.
We've talked about it.
So
he's 10. He's got the comedic timing of, like, you don't just have that. It's incredible. I mean, he delivered some of the best, if not all of the best lines in this entire movie. He made the movie.
Yep, I agree. We already talked about him enough. Don't really need to talk more about him.
Yeah.
Another character we talked about a good bit, older Jane Lynch. So she's the director of Sturdy Wings and is always talking about her drug addiction for some reason, just calling them BSers and not to BS the BSer. Jane Lynch is very, very funny in this movie for basically her lines alone.
Yeah. For just the continued drug addict recovery. Like, you know what I was doing? Cocaine. Just all of the cocaine references, all of that.
That's coming up.
So good.
Yeah.
She's the perfect to be the head. And I mean, we'll talk about everything soon, but Jane is an incredible singer.
Yeah. Well, move on here, though.
Yeah.
So one that she actually wasn't involved in, one of the scenes, even though it was a Sturdy Wings event, was the camping scene, which is probably my favorite scene. So it's just some, like, I feel like it's a nice kind of interlude. Like, it's very important. That's when you think that they're going to knock everything out. But you also have, like, a lot of relationship development with Paul Rudd and Christopher Mintz-Plasse, and then with Sean William Scott and Bobby J. Thompson, because they're talking about boobs and stuff. But even then, it's nice. You know, it's
exactly.
It's a good character development scene, and then it ends up with Sean William Scott naked by the fire, and they get kicked out. But I like the scene.
Try to get through that sleeping pill haze, you make it to the promised land.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. Also, there's always a guy there who can't quite play the acoustic guitar, and that was actually played by the director, which was awesome.
Yeah, and the really square dude who has a crush on Jane Lynch walks up and starts... That's another Love Take Me Down to the Streets thing, when they're like...
Yeah.
He's like, hey, do you know Eddie Wings? And the guy starts playing Love Take Me Down to the Streets. Ridiculous.
So good. So good. I gotta go with Jane Lynch, the Sturdy Wings promo video where there's just the cutaways of her being an aggressive alcoholic and drug addict. And then she's like looking in a pond so calmly. And then it goes back to her with like a gun and everything.
So I think that's only in the unrated version.
Really?
Yeah. Did you rent the unrated version?
I watched the unrated version.
Yeah, so did I. But from what I remember, those cutaway scenes were not in it. Like the calm, like the black and white scenes, or the calm, like lake thing is in it. But when she has the gut up to her head, I don't think that's in the rated version.
It's so good.
Yeah,
it literally makes the whole scene. It's the calm narration in the back of "I just needed a mentor," and
I never had a father figure, and then it's
my mother was a prostitute out of necessity.
That's in there. That is in the original one. It's so funny.
Coming in hot.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about her character. I'll start us out for line. So it's actually kind of all three of them, but the first line is the funniest probably. So she says, "You know what I used to have for breakfast? Cocaine. Know what I had for lunch? Cocaine." And then you have Sean William Scott Wheeler say, "What'd you have for dinner?" Paul Rudd, Danny quickly goes, "Was it cocaine?" It's perfect for all three of their characters. You have Jane Lynch doing the weird cocaine thing, being overly aggressive about what she used to do. And then Wheeler and Danny going right off each other really quickly, just being witty and funny.
Definitely had to be improv. I can see that being improv.
I could too, yeah.
For me, I say this still too. It's when Bobby J. Thompson is talking to Paul Rudd and he just goes, "Suck it, reindeer games." And Paul Rudd just goes, "I'm not Ben Affleck." He goes, "You're white? Then you're Ben Affleck." And I love it so much.
Yeah, and then Sean William Scott's like, "Well, you are white." He's like, "Yes, I am."
Just the logic is there.
Yeah, can't argue with that. But yeah, calling him calling them reindeer games, and then later Miss Daisy. That's
So good.
very funny.
Hey, pick us up in 2 hours. Fuck you, Miss Daisy.
Yeah. Mine's actually another Jane Lynch line. So it's very quick. It's just, I'm not here to service you. I'm here to service these young boys. I think that both Paul Rudd and Sean William Scott give each other a reaction like, what? Like, what'd you just say?
This one, for me, is also from the best character in this movie. It's after Bobby J. Thompson literally kicks down the tent when they're camping in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And Paul Rudd goes, Ronnie, why'd you do that? He goes, why? Because I'm black? You think I did it? And Paul Rudd goes, no, because you did it. I think you did it.
That is also a great one.
Literally watching him kick down the entire tent.
Yeah. When they're trying to set up. That's from
It's
my
so
scene.
good.
Yeah, we overlapped a lot in that for sure. But
Oh, yeah.
that was both I Love You Man and Role Models, the Paul Rudd and Joe Latruglio appreciation episode. We really like these movies. We think that, well, we both rewatched Role Models and think it's underrated. That is Winnie's
Absolutely.
number 5 of all time. Staying
Fact
there?
checked? Yeah.
Yeah, fact checked it.
Yes. 1,000% staying there.
All right, and then I Love You Man. You ended up really enjoying it, like I told you would.
I did.
What did we think was better?
I gotta stay with role models.
Yeah, I mean, it's your number 5, no doubt.
Yeah, I gotta stay with role. What about you? What are you thinking after?
They're so different for me.
I mean, yeah.
I Love You Man is like Hot Rod for me, in that I watched it so many times when I was young that it's hard for me to look at it objectively. It depends, just because I think I Love You Man so much more of a casual watch, and Role Models is more like I want a comedy. Mm-hmm. I think Role Models is probably a funnier movie. Pound for pound, it's probably funnier. I would say that.
I'm just happy you said that.
I'm not saying it because of you. I'm saying it because I am a professional and I am going to look past my own bias.
Thank you.
No
Thank
clapping
you for
in the
doing
press
that.
box here.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
I'm a big J journalist.
It's just validated. Validation right there. I got some slack. I got some comments all at the beginning saying, Role Models number 5. Are you crazy? Rewatch the movie and talk to me. Okay? Rewatch
That's
the
fair.
movie.
That's fair. All right. Well, I think that we can wrap up. If you've listened to this whole thing, thank you so much. We appreciate all your support.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell your friends. That's the best way to help us grow. Follow us on social. Drop us a review. We could really use those.
Yeah.
Anything else for the people, Winnie?
No, I mean, we appreciate it, and we'll keep on trucking on, and we'll come back for you next week.
Yeah, you really had nothing.
No. When you said, do you have anything? And I said, no.
That's fair.
Genuinely meant it. Yeah, no,
right.
Literally nothing.
So
The tank is empty.
yes, we will see you at the next episode, though. I'm Kevin.
I'm Winnie.
We'll see you then.
We're going to make s'mores of white chocolate.
Ah, you got it in.
I got it in. I had to. Keegan-Michael Key.